Hi all, I'm Libby, proud captain of Millwall Lionesses. Thank you to our Millwall fan show from the No One Likes Us Talkin team for sponsoring me this year. Make sure you give them a listen like I do. Or even better, why not sponsor a Lioness while you're at it like they do? Thank you always for your continued support.
This podcast is a proud member of the Fan Hub 100. Football without fans is nothing, so we've partnered with Fan Hub to put fans first. Search Fan Hub app to play your part in the journey.
Hi, I'm Bethany Warren, and you are joining me to listen to the podcast of our Millwall fan show with the No One Likes Us Talkin team, which is available every Friday at 8 p.m.
It is the full Friday of COVID-19 Lockdown 2.0. I'm your host, Eamonn Barclay, and I have the No One Likes Us Talkin team of Jeff Burnige, Stan Godwin and Bethany Warren.
Not everybody likes them, but they don't care.
Now, just before I go to introduce the team, our Commander-in-Chief, George Lampy, has got a few words he'd like to share with you.
This week we heard of the sad passing of Diego Maradona from a heart attack. To the people of Argentina and the world, Maradona was a footballing god. To the English football fan, he was at the other end of the spectrum. He broke the world record transfer fee twice, going to Barcelona and then on to Napoli. He won more awards than I have time to mention in this short tribute. He played in 4 World Cups for Argentina and led them to victory in 1986 in Mexico, beating the Germans in the final. That would have been an hard one to call for us English. Even in the famous quarter-finals of 86 against us, the Hand of God game, he went on to score the goal of the century, dribbling past 5 of our players before scoring. It was a fantastic goal, although for some of us it was hard to swallow. He also eventually went on to manage his national team. At Napoli, he helped the team win the league for the first time in their history, and what a joy it must have been for the Neapolitans to see him week in, week out playing for their team. Maradona was, I suppose you could say, a little bit like the Marmite Man. You either loved him or you hated him. But one thing was never in doubt. When it came to being a football player, he was blessed. Maradona, 1960 to 2020.
Well, that was nice, George. They reckon he'll have a bigger funeral than Eva Peron, and I don't doubt that in Argentina. They loved him to bits. Anyway, back to tonight. R.I.P. Maradona. Jeff, what did you make of our game against Cardiff?
Well, it was frustrating, wasn't it? It was really frustrating. Another draw, and we'll go on to talk about Reading in a minute, presumably, but we keep drawing these home games. We keep getting in front, and but for me, we're just not making enough chances. We made 2 or 3, and a couple of ones that we should have scored from in the Cardiff game, but you don't score from every chance, do you? And I'd like to see us making a few more chances. That'd be my thoughts on Cardiff.
Okay, Bethany, how about you?
Hello. I mean, obviously it was a poor pass by Malone that cost us, and I just don't think that we're taking our chances. You know, we had a few good ones, but we're not capitalising on the chances we had. You know, so on the whole, I don't think it was terrible, but I would have liked to have seen us at least beat Cardiff, you know, especially with Neil Harris coming back for the first time to the Den. Yeah. I was so happy to see him there, and watching it on iFollow, it was really strange seeing him on the other side. But yeah, hopefully we can start coming out of this drawing streak and get a win. Yeah.
What about you, Stan? Start talking about the game on Wednesday night.
Some respects, it was very much the same sort of thing, although a lot of people are getting excited about all this, but you see, I look at it slightly different. I think that there's a lot of knee-jerking going on. OK, we've drawn a game, but, you know, possibly another time under another manager, we'd have lost them games. And we are creating the chances. And I agree with Bethany. What we're not doing is we're not taking them. But then if you take Wednesday, we had 4 players out injured who, if they'd have been playing, were potential goal scorers.
Yeah.
You know, we had Bradders missing, Mahoney, Bennett, Zahora. So we was a bit light up front. Yeah, Ben Thompson, he put a lot of effort in. You know, well, that's, you know, you can never fault him for effort. Troy Parrott, I was quite impressed with him again last night. Thought he was good. And, no, I mean, it's difficult and it's frustrating, but, you know, I read some of these comments and I think, dear, oh dear, what's going on here? But anyway.
It is what it is, and we are where we are. Jeff, have you got any more to add to what Stan said?
I thought the general performance on Wednesday night was better than the Cardiff game. I thought it was a higher tempo. We didn't make any serious mistake like we did on the Cardiff game. But obviously it was a shock to people to see that we played the front. I mean, 2 of them probably more known as midfield players and an 18-year-old up the middle. Obviously, I agree with Stan about the number of injuries. In the end, we'll have to accept it. We are 10th in the league. We are Millwall. We're not Manchester United. You know, and on to Birmingham.
Bethany, any more from you?
Yeah, I mean, you know, the problem is, I don't think there's a problem with the defence. I think our problem is the transition from defence to attack. But we've had no losses in 4 games. Would I have taken this position at the start of the season? Yes, I'd have bitten your hand off for it. Do I want to see more because I know what they can do now after watching them? Of course. But we're in a great position. And like I just said at the start of the year, I'd have said, oh my God, to be in the position we're in at the minute, like, yeah, let's do it. Let's go for it. So I want to see more. Of course I do, like we all do, but I'm not disappointed with where we're at.
No, it's reasonable. We can really consider the size of our squad, and you consider also the amount of injuries that we've got. I think that's the biggest balance.
Can I just say, Eamonn, I mean, I'm sitting here thinking, and we brought on 2 subs. Possibly, if I'd have been in the dugout, and what I might have been tempted to do is bring on that Tyler Bury.
Yeah.
That is because we see him once before. Admittedly, he was a wide man, right? But he come on and he had plenty, and he wasn't frightening nobody. He took him on. I might have said to him, I might have played him down the middle and just said to him, right, you just keep getting down there and you keep dropping bombs in their penalty area. Because I think he'd have unsettled him with his pace and whatever. That may or may not have come off, but that's possibly the only thing I might have done rather than, you know, he would have been one of them 2 subs that went on. It could have been different, that's all, but you never know now.
That sounds like there's more work to be done, and hopefully we'll get there against Birmingham on Saturday. And we'll talk about that later in the show. Tonight we welcome a long-standing fan to our dugout. He was born in Merstham, which is just outside the London area in Surrey, but on the other side of the M25. He then moved to Belmont, where in the day it was known as Little Hell, as it was from there that highwaymen and robbers hung out to rob the London to Brighton coaches. Something not practised these days, or at least I haven't noticed it recently. But hold Little Hell in your minds for later. As a teenager, he hosted a local television show called Murray on Monday, and he went on to publish several works of sports journalism before turning his attention to whiskey. That's a variation on the subject. He is known for his numerous books on the topic of whiskey and became particularly famous for his yearly editions of Whiskey Bible. As a journalist, he wrote for both the Daily Star and the Sunday People. He penned a work of great sports journalism about the love of his life, Millwall Football Club, which was titled Millwall Lions of the South. It's considered by many as one of the greatest books produced in the name of not only Millwall Football Club, but football as a whole, when it was published in 1988. He also holds a position amongst the list of most popular non-fiction authors. So tonight we are very proud to bring the virtual studio Jim Murray. Welcome, Jim.
Lovely to be with you.
The others might say hello to you as well, Jim.
Hello, Jim. How are you?
Good evening, Jim Murray. What a wonderful occasion it is to be able to speak to you and Kingy and Stan all at the same time. How great is that?
Hey, and don't forget I'm here too. Never mind. Jim, before I let you off to the panel, hailing from the edge of southwest London, how did you become a Millwall fan?
Well, I may have been born in Surrey, but my father was actually born in Deptford. And he actually grew up virtually next door to the Den. And he used to go off and watch Millwall Football Club on a Saturday. I used to be stuck at home. Belmont in those days, funnily enough, was, well, basically a village in the country. And so while my dad was watching Millwall, I was out in the fields and just waiting for the day when I'd be allowed down the Den. And I used to give him grief because he'd take my brother, my older brother, but not me. And then in 1966, April 30th, we played Swansea Town at home. And he said, OK, I'll take you. And that was it, a life sentence. But my father had been watching Millwall since about 1923.
Goodness.
So it's absolutely in the blood.
Yeah, it's in the line. Well, we were hoping that Bethany was going to talk to you, but she's lost her internet connection. It's becoming infectious, that one. But she did ask, or she did give me a question that she wanted to ask you. You have to put in your mind that Bethany is a 25-year-old Millwall fan.
Right.
And she says, fellow journalist, author and Millwall fan Merv Payne was on the show recently, and he said that he still hopes that you might write a follow-up to Millwall Lions of the South, a book that my dad has as well. Has it ever been on the cards, and is it still a possibility?
The big problem I've got, Eamonn, is time. That is my massive problem, because my work in the whisky field literally takes me around the world. I'm abroad, well, when there's not COVID, I'm abroad about 6 months of the year. I have a home in Kentucky as well, and I'm just travelling. In fact, this year I was meant to be doing tours of Australia and China and South America and so on, and of course all that's been ruined. But that's normally my life. What I do still do is I still research. So we were talking about my dad going to the games. Well, he used to bring back the program, the old sixpenny program, and at the age of about 6 or 7, a pile of these was growing, by my bedside table where I'd read them, and it was probably forget about Janet and John, my first reading with the Wall programs, and I've just carried on that collecting. So now I think I'm missing about, I don't know, probably about 30 home programs from 1920. And if something comes up that I haven't got, I will get it because I'm looking to research all the time. So there is new there's new material there. There's a lot more material there. It's where Fantastic. I get the chance to actually do anything about it.
Yeah.
As for the recent years, what is more likely to happen is that I might commission someone to actually write it, because I won't have time to do the more recent years.
Being brought up on Millwall programmes has obviously stood you in good stead, because you can now travel around the world on the basis of that.
I can, you learn to read. You get in the habit of reading, don't you?
That's it.
And I'll tell you something else about people with football. They know where places around the country is.
Good for your geography, yeah.
It is.
No doubt.
You can tell people who aren't into football because you say, about Hartlepool. They say,
yes.
Hartlepool. We've known since we were 6 or 7 because we used to look it up. So there was a kind of a strange education coming from being interested in football from a young age.
There you go. I'll lead you off to the panel now.
Good.
It's Jeff first, I think, and I'd like to say, yes, I think for following Millwall away has definitely been an education for all of us in more ways than one.
Yeah, well, it's you were saying I now do whiskey. Well, what do you think drove me to it?
The question I'd like to ask Jim is the one that many people have asked me, because they think I'll be able to pass it on to Jim. That is that when you finished the book in 1987, which was after the first season of the my regime with Reg Burr and Brian Mitchell, did it really ever occur to you that by the time that the book came out, we were on our way to being promoted into the First Division for the first time in our history? And would you have delayed it by a year if you'd known?
Well, you were with me.
I was.
You know, when we were putting the final thing together. I mean, you gave me a hand. And, you know, you missed some of those last games in season...
86,
88. So the book came out in 88. And no, I don't think so. I don't think I would. Actually, from a commercial point of view, more than anything else, if you look at it, I sold 6,000 copies in 6 weeks.
Yeah.
And believe it or not, Millwall Lions of the South briefly appeared as Britain's #1 sports book. It was unbelievable. The book just vanished off the shelves. We were just hoovering them up. So from a commercial perspective, the book coming out at the time of Millwall getting promoted, you couldn't really have asked for much more. And I remember doing the book signing. We played Stoke City. We won that game 2-0. And we were doing the book signing. And the police came up to me and said, look, can you wrap this up? Because there's queues going back about half a mile and it's just screwing everything up here. We can't. And it was absolutely extraordinary because no book on Millwall had ever been done before. This was 4 years of fresh research. It really was. Every spare moment I had in my life went into researching and writing Lions of the South, which already had many, many years of research from me before. So I'm quite happy with the time it went in. And, you know, it was also an interesting point is that it's almost as if there's two Millwalls. There's the pre-Division 1 days and then the Division 1 days and after. And this book perfectly takes you up to the very, very season that we, get promoted.
Yeah, but that's what demands a follow-up, isn't it? Because if ever there was a lot of movies have a second version, don't they, which comes out, Mamma Mia, here we go again. Lions of the South, here we go again.
I agree with you, but the problem I've got is that I've got a book. I've also got in my hands the biggest selling whiskey book on the planet.
Yeah.
So I have to spend 4 to 5 months of the year researching and writing that. Every year I taste 1,250 new whiskies.
Terrible job.
Trust me, some of them are.
Every year we all see Millwall miss 1,000 odd chances.
Look, in recent weeks we don't have that number of attacks, but it's it's time management. Is what can you do? And Jeff, you know me so well. I won't do something unless I can do it.
Well, I saw you in the last few months
as I possibly can.
Well, I watched you do that book for the last few months. We spent a lot of time together on it, didn't we?
We did.
And I know that it was basically 18 hours a day for you for week after week to get that book right and done. So you'll have to do what you suggested a few minutes ago. You'll have to commission someone to work with. There are some good candidates out there. So let's hope that we will see a Lions of the South Vol 2 soon.
We're actually thinking of bringing out Lions of the South as in its current form as an e-book. So
excellent.
So the present generation can get it, because I think to bring it out as a book again probably wouldn't work, but it probably would for the newer generation, because I want to get the new generation really excited about Millwall's past. People, who is celebrating the fact that this year is Millwall's centenary of being in the Football League?
Yeah.
Who is celebrating this? Nobody.
Yeah.
And it's commercially it was a chance that's been spurned, but there again it's been spurned, I think, by the terrible management of the Football League, because they did nothing to promote it. They give clubs these dreadful numbers to put on their backs, they don't lead from the front. I've got very little time for the Football Leagues at hand, but so we could have done more. And there's only so much I can do, Jeff. And I if I could write, an updated version, I would. But the Bible has got to come first, I'm afraid.
If I haven't read it, and it does come out as an ebook, you are in for a treat, because it is a magnificent book, in my opinion. Fortunately for us, we had Jim to make sure that everything from 1885 to 1987 was recorded. So it's brilliant. It's something I still like to dip into now.
I do. I got my copy.
Was that, and I remember having this conversation with you, Jeff, all those years ago, and I remember saying to you, the history of Millwall's goalkeepers in itself is absolutely extraordinary. I mean, to be honest, I could do a book just on Millwall goalkeepers, because the people that we've had going through right away out, to Kingy and beyond, that they really are the most amazing people. I mean, our first main goalkeeper, Ober Kegel, he ended up producing the club's football programme, and his son became a director. And then you look at the people who came after him, and these guys were 14-stone goalkeepers in an age when most players were about 10 stone. These were huge blocks of people. We had Tiny Joyce. Tiny Joyce was a giant. We signed. I've got a 1902-03 03-04 Southampton v Millwall programme, and on the front is a picture of Tiny Joyce when he was a Southampton player. And he went from Southampton to us. So in respect to him, they put a photograph of him on the front of the programme. And he joined us. And actually, Kingy's got the record for number of appearances in league matches. But even compared to Tiny Joyce, Kingy's way behind, because John Joyce, he played something like 450 games, just short of 450 games. If you take First World War games that he played in into account, he played Southern League, all the other leagues that they played in. He just played and played and played. And although he played 450 games, he still went away and joined Football League clubs on a couple of occasions, and twice we signed him from Tottenham. And he still played 450 games for us. And he later became our trainer. He stood in as a temporary manager while we looked for another one, and he was a groundsman. We've had an extraordinary history of goalkeeping, and the people who represented their styles at the time. And just going on back to Southampton again, when we had a player capped for England for the very, very first time, Banks, the game was played at the Dell, and we played Ireland. England played Ireland, and again Southampton put their international goalkeeper on the front, a guy by the name of Jack Robinson. Well, a few years later, Jack Robinson was playing for us, and Jack Robinson holds the distinction of being the first goalkeeper who was recognised as being able to dive around the goal. Until then, goalkeepers were so huge because they could be barged into the net. They just kind of ambled around. But this was an agile goalkeeper who was the first in the mould that Kingy totally came to represent. So he played for Millwall as well. So again, we've gone right the way through. We've had so many internationals play for us. And the Millwall fans have been used to seeing wonderful goalkeeping over the years.
Notwithstanding, Jim, when we got promoted to the First Division, when you was putting your book together, was there ever a favourite era that possibly one of your own personal favourite eras that you come across?
Yeah, I think there is actually. I think our season under Gordon Jago, 75-76, when we came out of nowhere and got promoted in the days when three would go up without playoffs, was absolutely extraordinary. That was Kingy had just left. I saw Bryan play last ever game for Millwall. It was the last game of the season, 1-1 draw against Bristol Rovers. I saw that, and we then dropped into the third with Bristol Rovers as one of the clubs, and we weren't quite sure what was going to happen. We were hoping we were going to bounce back because we still had Kitch. Jago had signed the likes of Tony Hazel. We got Ray Evans, but we didn't have very much up front, to be honest with you. And at the start of the season, we still had Gordon Hill, and I was also at Chester. We got absolutely we weren't very good that day. We lost 3-1. But Gordon Hill played his last ever game for us. Now, when he left to go to Manchester United, he actually was on 9 goals, and he remained our top goal scorer that season. And I think he left us in October. And yet we still got promoted. And the reason that season sticks in my mind was because it was the first time I really, really saw a team that defended from the front. We see all now, they close down, they don't give a team space. Well, I'd never really seen that done to perfection until Gordon Jago did that in the 75-76 season. So you had the front guys who weren't scoring goals, but they were preventing goals because they were just closing down all the time, and teams just weren't used to this. And then when people did finally get through, it was you had Kitch, I would say, in the best form I've ever seen in my life. And the statistics of our defence for the second half of the season, I mean, around about Christmas, we were halfway, and we'd more or less given promotion up, and we were more bothered about trying to do Malcolm Allison out of an FA Cup run than we were about getting promoted. Mm-hmm. But the statistics of that 75-76 season beggars belief. And we conceded, I think, 2 goals in our last 12 games or something. And going right back to January, there was only 2 matches in which we conceded in the first half, in the whole of the year.
Incredible stuff.
An incredible machine to watch, and it was really lovely football because it wasn't kick and rush. It wasn't long ball. It wasn't let's just get the ball and keep circling it around and recycling it until everyone falls asleep. It was we were going at teams, but we didn't have great talent. We had John Seasman, who really was a great signing, and he gave us that bit of class. So, and somehow we came out of nowhere and we won our last game of the season at Swindon, and then we had to wait for the others to muck up, which they did, and we got promoted. So there was that, and also the lion on that Millwall shirt, that proud, broad white lion on the Millwall shirt, which so dwarfs this pathetic badge that we have today, which is the same as every other club badge with a circular thing and then a tiny little line inside. There was this broad lion, roaring lions, rampant lion, and there was Kitch just rising above everybody, heading out with this lion roaring on his chest. These are indelible memories for me. That was an extraordinary season.
One to remember, and probably the last time we were ever able to have individuality as a club in terms of what we could wear. I think it's all changed since then. But anyhow, pushing on, because we got our main guest hanging on there for us. It's a tradition that all our guests have to provide a prediction for our forthcoming game. Without further ado, Birmingham versus Millwall. What do you reckon, Jim?
0-0.
And what do you base that on?
Experience of the season. It's it's not whether I'm not guessing on whether it's going to be 0-0. It's whether I can actually stay awake during the game. That's going to be the toughie.
Well, that's a reasonable view. I think there's a lot that might say that as well. Now, beyond being a Millwall fan, of some note, there's a special reason that we have you on the show tonight. And before we welcome our special former line, who we want you to stay with us for and greet him, how did you first get to become a close friend of one of our greatest keepers of all times, Bryan King?
We met just down the den over the years. We'd keep bumping into each other, and we got to know each other. And I knew him just about well enough that when he gave his eulogy at Kitch's funeral, that I could say, you know what, Bryan, mate, we've got to do a book. We really, really have. I think I got a feeling I'd already floated it to him in the past, but it was during Kitch's wake. I thought, this has got to be done, because there's such a vast chunk of Millwall's history here that's got to be told, and we've lost Kitch. He can't tell the story. We can't let this disappear. And Bryan was there during such exceptional days, and also he was there under the Benny Fenton era and knew so much about Benny, which in itself is fascinating. But yeah, I mean, Kingy knew me well enough to know that I was serious when I spoke to him about this. But yeah, we just met over the years, really.
That's fantastic. Well, we're going to take a break there, and we're going to listen to Bethany Warren, who hasn't got back online yet, but she's good for an advert as well.
Bethany Warren here again. Thanks for listening to our show. Don't forget, Love Sport Radio is now mothballed pending change in current conditions. You can still listen, though, to music both online and on DAB. Podcasts are available on demand. Hopefully, we'll be back on the air with them when normality returns to the marketplace.
I'm Eamonn, and I'm back with a No One Likes Us talking team of Jeff Burnige, Stan Goodwin, and our fan in the dugout, Jim Murray. Don't forget, you won't find any of our current shows at Love Sport Radio. In fact, only pre-pandemic recordings. Find us on Spreaker, Millwall No One Likes Us Talking, until further notice. Next up is a giant amongst our former players, and a goal-keeping giant in our history too. He played for Millwall for over 8 seasons, made 339 appearances for us between the sticks in what at the time from 1967 through to 1975 was seen as the golden era for Millwall, and Bryan, who was capped by England too during that period. As that era ebbed away, Bryan went to Coventry, where he finished his playing career in not the best of circumstances through injury. He remained in football in one capacity or another until not that long ago, having been a scout with Everton. His story from being brought up in Bishop Stortford to playing for Chelmsford City to joining the Lions and beyond is featured in his book, The Lion's King, which is published, I believe, today. Welcome, Bryan King.
Hi, how you going?
Good that you can join us from a dark place in Norway, I would imagine. By this time of night, it must be pitch black. Bryan, before I let you off to the team, your book is only the second book by a player, Eamonn Barclay, about the time when you were playing for the Lions. And we've just heard how Jim became a close friend of yours, but tell us how this relationship blossomed and came to deliver on The Lion's King.
Well, I was at the Den for my 60th birthday, actually. And the club was going to present myself and Phil Walker with a crystal ball and make us officially legends, apparently, of which I appreciated very much. And the ovation we got when we walked on the pitch, it still stands with me now. And I mean, that's 13 years ago, and I think I'd been at the club for many, many years, and for all these people to still remember me and honour me, I was very humbled and very touched. And it's nice to know, even when small boys were coming up or small children were coming up and saying, you know, I don't really know who you are or what kind of goalkeeper you was, but my granddad or my dad said you were the best. And I think, well, I start feeling 60 then, but it was a great honour for me. And I was then actually, for about the second time in my life, was asked into the boardroom at Millwall. I don't seem to get in there very much, but I got asked in, and there he was, Jim Murray, with his whiskey Bibles. and Jeff was there as well, and my family was with me that day, and we had a very pleasant afternoon upstairs after the game, and just got talking to Jim, and he gave me a book, and he said, really, you should be giving me a book, your book. And I thought, well, yeah, here we go, but who wants to write about me? As I've said before, I felt myself as just a Millwall player who tried to give his best all the time. And from then on in, I thought a little bit about it. Never heard much from Jim until I saw him a couple of 3 times at games. Same with Jeff, really. And I was at the big fella's funeral, and Hazel said, do you want to say some words? And I said, well, I think I will, and I think I've got the tone of it. I know he wouldn't want me to be looking down at my toes and talking about such a wonderful player and such a miss and such a this and such a that, but try to put a bit of humour in it, and it seemed to go down all right. And then afterwards, Jim approached me and said, look, have you got those stories written down? I said, no. He said, what, they're all in your head? So I said, yeah. I said, there's not much in my head, but there's a few stories about Millwall. And he said, well, you should write them down. I said, what? I remember them. He said, no, you've got to write them down. He said, I'll give you a call. I'll give you a call in, well, it went a couple of years. And then we spoke. And I said, well, if you think it's worth doing, I'll go along with you, and you can have the stories. And as he said, I went up to his offices in Banbury, or he met me in Banbury. And the funny story was with that, Jane and Vinny, who worked for him, said to me, "You'll recognise Jim, because he always got his fedora on, his Ecuadorian hat, what he wears, a trilby or whatever you want to call it. And he's in the car park." So I come out and I'm looking up. There ain't a person in the car park with a trilby on. So so then I look and I see, I think he had a Mercedes at the time. And I looked and I thought, it's got to be his car. That it's got Millwall for a number plate.
Yeah.
And sure enough, there he was in the car park, and that's where it started. We went to his offices, we sat down, and the project was born. And today, I believe, the books are meant to be arriving in his offices. So that's what we done, and that's what we wrote. And Mark Howarth done a good job, and Vinnie, Jane, and especially Jim, who has backed this project, and well, he thought the project up. So I can only say to Jim that it's an honour for me to know him, and it's a great honour for my family to eventually going to say, well, if nothing else happens, Kingy, you've got a book on the bookshelf.
Fantastic, absolutely fantastic, Brian.
It makes your Christmas presents easy.
Yeah, it would do. Now, the last time you were on, Brian, not that long ago, you claimed fellow Millwall goalkeeper Brian Horne was actually not 5'7" tall, but 5'7" around the middle. What did Brian have to say about that then?
Bryan had to say about that he's not 5 foot round the middle anymore. And he's not 5'7" tall either. He's 5'11" actually. Tell Mr. King to get his facts right, will you?
Oh, you didn't expect that then, did you?
No, but it's true. If he'd have let me finish instead of rudely interrupting me, he would wait and hear the end of my little tale of when somebody says he's 5'7" as a goalkeeper, impossible. Horne's a decent size, not the biggest. Always was a great kicker of the ball and a bloody good goalkeeper. But in the last months, he's been battling away to get his weight down, and he's done a magnificent job, so he tells me. He sent me a picture. It could have been anybody, to be honest, but I did realise it was Horne when I looked at it closely. But he really has worked on his nutrition. Because to be fair, everybody says I've got a lot of records at Millwall, but I think Horne's got the record of the most rashers of bacon in between 2 slices of bread.
You ain't wrong either.
Because I can assure you, when we were in Portugal for the 2004, we're staying in a hotel. This is God's truth. There's a lovely hotel called the Almanzor in Carvera, and normal breakfast we come down. And, they bring the eggs and the scrambled eggs and the bacon and the bean, all this stuff. He gets up. It's the first morning I'd actually witnessed what he could actually put on a plate. And anyway, he comes back with this 4 slices of bread and 117 rashers of bacon.
It was 3 actually, right? It was like a food. It was 3 slices. It wasn't 4.
If you could have filled me up. Listen, if you could have seen the people's faces that were following us, they were obviously going to enjoy eggs and bacon for breakfast. And this bloke's gone, he's got it all on his plate.
Hey, by the way, Bri, that wasn't bacon, was it? Let's be fair.
No, well, it did look like bacon, Brian.
It was bacon. I don't know what bacon is in Portugal, that's for sure.
But the way you ate it, it was certainly bacon.
Well, I was hungry. I just got up.
Just got up.
Yeah.
It was Rapunzel. We've been asleep for 100 years.
We've been in the Rockefellers, right? We've been doing the Rockefellers.
Yes, Horne was entertaining the troops. He was giving us teddy bear at 3 o'clock in the morning.
Listen, just while he's on, Kingy, right? When I first went to Millwall, my dad took me. We used to stay on the Coldblow Lane, and Kingy was the goalkeeper for the Lions at the time. And he was my idol growing up. He was someone that I wanted to emulate and be as good as it. Like. And without Bryan being on the terraces and my dad taking me to Millwall, I don't think I would have been a goalkeeper. And I owe a lot to King. He's a great friend, but he was a brilliant goalkeeper, and he inspired me to be a goalkeeper myself. It was just lucky we both played for Millwall, but he's a top man. He's helped me a lot in my business. He's helped me a lot off the field with other bits and pieces. And even when I was with George Graham at Millwall, he was my goalkeeping coach. So we go back a long way. And I really, really hope that all the Millwall fans buy his book. He makes a few quid. And as Del Boy says, he'll be a millionaire next year.
That's lovely. Lovely, Brian.
Thanks, Brian.
Brian Horne, Jim Murray here.
Jim, how are you?
I'm fine, mate. Hey, do you know, I saw you make probably the best ever goalkeeping display I have ever seen outside the Football League. Can you remember the game?
Outside of the Football League?
Yeah.
Best, was it for Millwall youth team?
No.
For Arsenal?
For Dover.
Oh, Dover.
Dover Athletic against?
Russian and Diamonds.
Yeah, away from home. We won 1-0.
Yeah, but at your place, at Dover, it was 1-1.
Yeah.
And it was the season they got promoted into the Football League.
Yeah.
And they threw everything at you, to win this game. And I'm telling you, Horne, you must have brought off about 12 saves. The only time I've ever seen you do anything like it was when we played Barnsley. And you saved all those penalties against Barnsley.
Yeah.
You remember the penalty shootout?
Yeah, you know how thick I am, though. I was taking the next penalty. So if I'd have let that one in, I would have scored and got the winner as well.
But
I didn't work it out at the time.
Ryan, and the Brian Talbot was the manager of Ocean and Diamond.
Correct.
And he said to me, "Why isn't he in the Football League?" He says, "What? He's got no right to be. He's got no right to be playing at this level." He said. He was absolutely shell shocked after that game. It was just absolutely incredible.
Yeah, I played. Who was in our side at the time? David Lee Worthy, I think, the old Tottenham forward, played up front. But I went to Millwall, Jim, after that as well. After Dover, Millwall tried to sign me back. I think it was about 96, 97. But we went into liquidation, and I think Anna McCleary's forms went through and mine didn't. So otherwise, I might have stayed at Millwall for a bit.
I had no idea. I mean, I was watching you, and it was like watching you in the days when we won Division 2, when we were in Division 1. And I remember you at the Crabble, and I was thinking, what the hell are you doing here?
But that was, you know what it was, Jim, if I'm being honest with you. Once I left Millwall, it was always going to be hard to try and replicate the camaraderie the lads had and everything. And when Bruce Rioch come to the club, some players got on with him, I didn't. And he made my life a misery at Millwall. And I think when I went to Dover was the first time I really started enjoying playing football again. I think I went to the Portsmouth, the first training session. My calves pulled. I had to have an operation. I stayed there for 2 years. Then I ended up at Hartlepool for a couple of years. And it was just the fact that when I come back down south and signed for Dover for a year or so or whatever it was, the lads were great in there. I mean, I'll tell you a funny story. That I pulled in the car park. I think I had a convertible Escort at the time. And you know what it's like at non-league level. They try and bring you down to earth. And it was quite a hot day pre-season. So I've drove into the car park, got into the dressing room. We've done the training. I've come back out and I'm quite slow getting ready and coming home. And I come out to the convertible to go home, and they've tipped every single bit of rubbish in the bins around the ground in my car. So, it was great. It was just like, it was just like fun and enjoying your football. And, that's probably why I did so well there and at Dover with Joe Sullivan as manager, is because I enjoyed the football again, and it was like being back at Millwall, I felt.
I have to say, I mean, listening to this conversation, I mean, is absolutely superb. But just one, going on to Bryan King for a minute. Now, to me, Bryan, when you played at Millwall, to me, the greatest player, in my opinion, to ever play for Millwall was in that team, and that bloke was Keith Weller. And, I mean, I remember watching him at times, like watching him play. I mean, I can remember a game where we beat Middlesbrough 4-0. I mean, the game was all over by half-time. And watching him, it was like watching a conductor conduct an orchestra. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, Keith was a very special player and a very special person. I can remember playing a pre-season friendly. I think we played Dundee.
Oh, yeah.
Then, and we beat them 8-0.
Yep.
And I think he scored 5, I think, Keith. But he could have scored 10. I mean, he was very clever on the ball, could see things, even in the early or the late 60s, he had great vision, and he knew when to run with it, and knew when to pass it. He could see chinks in teams, he could see the cracks in teams, and he could exploit it. He was one of them players that when you watched him or when he trained, he could start training and finish training, and he never had to comb his hair, did he? I mean, nothing went out of place on him, and he really was a talented player. And of course, he went on to prove it. He played for Chelsea, he played for Leicester, he played for England, and then sadly went to America, and he's passed away now. And but a great player. when you was on about the greatest player you've ever seen, I thought you was going to say me. What's going on, Stan? What's the matter with you?
I said the best performance outside the Football League.
No. I'm talking to Stan now, Jim. I'm talking to Stan. Stan was going on about the best players. I'm thinking, God, dear oh me, Stan, you put me up here, mate.
But you're there because I think good goalkeepers down at Millwall. I mean, I remember going down here when Alex Stepney was in the team. But without any shadow of a doubt, you are the best goalkeeper I've seen at Millwall. No question.
See you later. Ta-da. Bye.
But just one other...
Horne, get some bacon while you're on your way out.
You ain't wrong. I'm going round the butcher.
When you was on this show before, you talked about when you played in the League Cup against Northampton.
Yep.
And another player in that team that day, I mean, he was another player I really liked, but that game, that was when he'd been at Millwall for a couple of years at that point, and he'd never really got the crowd on his side. And I can remember, and that was George Jacks. And I remember when we were standing on the terraces before the game, and the guy comes over the tannoy and he says, "Oh, programme change." He said, "Number 4 for Millwall," because it was normally Ken Jones up until then.
Yeah.
He turns around and says George Jackson, and all of a sudden this sort of groan went round the ground, right? But he come out, George, and what happened, the first time I ever see it, he actually put him in the middle of midfield, right, which he'd never played before in the first team. He scored 2 goals, absolutely outstanding that night, and that made him. And from that moment on, he never, ever looked back. And the Millwall fans loved him from that point.
Well, George was a great player, an underestimated player. I mean, he was always on the fringe, always on the sub bench at the start there, and I mean, his work rate was unbelievable, and always the same. George, cheerful, had a great attitude, and lovely family man. I mean, I spoke to him about 10 days ago, George, and just the same, always asking you about the family, telling you about his family, his granddaughter's playing I think she's either playing at Millwall or QPR, he said. She's only about 8 or 9, and he's so enthusiastic about it, as he was with everything. He loved Millwall, and he played a lot of games.
Here's a question for the panel. Your starter for 10. What piece of history does George Jacks hold with Millwall Football Club?
You'll have to ask Stan that question because Jeff won't know.
No, I know. I've got 2 answers.
Oh.
Go on, then.
One answer was he was the first ever Millwall substitute.
Correct.
That's correct.
And the other answer is that, but for him scoring a late equaliser against Scunthorpe, we never would have made the 59-match unbeaten run.
Right.
And he scored that goal with a part of his anatomy which was not left foot, right foot or head.
Cream crackers, I presume.
Something like that.
Yeah. That unbeaten home run was... I mean, I know people talk about, we've been in a cup final and we've been in the playoff finals. And I mean, they're all wonderful. And we've had promotions. But for somebody that went to Millwall in that unbeaten home run, I mean, for me and for a lot of people, that's up there with all the all the other success we've had. I mean, that was outstanding. It was.
Yeah, I was at that Plymouth game. I was 9 years of age.
Yeah, I was
when we
there.
lost the run and my mum wrapped me up in a scarf. Guess what colours they were?
Green and white.
Green, white, and black.
And that was their first.
I'm lucky to still be alive.
Yeah,
I think so.
Plymouth won that day. That was their first away win in the season.
It was. They'd lost every game except one. They got 1 point on the road.
Do you think the club would have been different?
But that's us. That's what Millwall do.
I'll tell you what, they never went on the road back.
Yeah, that's right, yeah.
Sadly true.
Paddington Station, here we come.
Yeah, that's right, yeah. And Thomas the Tank Engine was late.
Do you think the club would have been different now if you would have gone up?
Well, yeah, probably. I mean, I don't know. It's hard to say, really, because, it's... See, people talk about... I mean, all right, people want to get into the Premier League now, and all right, that's That's the ambition, if you like. But equally, I know a lot of people that, you know, if we got into the Premier League, they're going to get a bit frightened in the sense that all of a sudden everything starts to change, you know, because all this money comes flowing in, and which, you know, is okay to a point. But, you know, you suddenly get people turn up at Millwall who've never been there before, and the moment they get relegated, they disappear, like, you know. So, I don't know. I mean, it's a difficult one, but, you know, that's just the way it is.
But, Stan, Kingy, what about, how nice would it have been to have seen Kingy and Kitch playing for Millwall in the old First Division just after that disappointing game with Preston? You know, that was the most disappointing night of my life, I think, when
the question is, if they had a done, would Kitch have got his full cap instead of a kind of a half cap, just sitting on the bench for England and never getting on? Would he have actually played for England? Would Kitch have played for England? You know, when you're suddenly in the First Division, perspectives change and managers look at you in a different way.
Well, in all the time we were there, Alf came down once. He came to us, I think we played Huddersfield, and we won 1-0. And I remember I got picked for this. I had to go. They were playing Malta, I think, or somebody anyway, and they were a goalkeeper short. Clem or somebody got injured anyway. The word come up, can you get over to the Roehampton, to the Bank of England ground? And I'd broke my finger. And I'm doing a warm-up with Banksy and them and Pete Bonetti, and Banksy says to me, you all right? So I said, yeah, my finger's a bit sore. Like. He said, what do you mean sore? I said, well, I broke it. He said, have you told Alf? I said, no, mate. I said, no, that's the first time I've ever been called in here. I ain't going to lose this chance. I don't care what... If I'd have broke all of them, I'd have still been here. And it was murders, it was. And Banksy's hitting these bleeding balls at me, and I'm trying to catch him. And I'm thinking, it's right what they say, you know. If they say, and you say you're fit, then you've got to go and you've got to experience it, because don't start blaming it if things go wrong for you. And that's just how it was at Millwall. When Benny said to you, are you all right? The moment you said yes, A, you knew you were going to be in trouble, and B, you had to perform. Because if you didn't, it'd be on you like a ton of bricks.
And
Brian,
I just want to think, I think one of the things I'm really, really proud about with The Lions King is that it's the first book that really, really does look at Benny Fenton. Because the earlier book written about Millwall gives a kind of a one-sided view on that. This gives more of a footballing perspective. And Benny Fenton was a huge part of Millwall life for a long, long time. And, you know, Kingy brings this out. And, you know, I mean, Benny's worth a book on his own, to be honest.
Yeah, he was a talented manager, you know, at that period. And, I mean, he signed some good players. I mean, look at the players that he brought in for what, 50 grand. There was myself, there was Dennis Burnett, there was Derek Posse, Keith Weller. He had a set of shirts for Hilly to Slough Town. I mean, wasn't it? You know. Yeah. And he introduced young players, Stevie Brown, Dougie Alder. He brought through Alan Dorney. He brought through Kitch. He got Brian Brown on a free transfer. Harry was already at the club. Harry always thought he was worth 150 grand even then. And to be fair, if it was down to enthusiasm and encouraging players, he was. But, and then, of course, he brought Alf Wood in. He brought Brian Conlon in, Gordon Boland in. He didn't sign Eamonn Dunphy. I think if he'd have had the option to sign Eamonn Dunphy, he wouldn't have signed him, because Eamonn was a thorn in Benny's side from the day one when he started at the football club. Benny Fenton, that is, because Eamonn was the shop steward of the players down there, and well, we all got on with him at a point, and we've seen what happens when he's got success. He forgets all of us. But Good luck to him. I know Jack Charlton loved him.
Kingy, love you to pieces, mate. I wish you all the best with the book.
Okay,
Thanks, Brian.
mate.
Thanks for coming on.
Love your family, Brian. Love your
Cheers,
family.
Brian. Bye.
Bye.
Good man. Good man.
Top
that was
boy.
a little surprise for you. Oh, Brian.
Lovely.
So, just getting back to the plot with the book. So it's all come together, almost. Hopefully that package will arrive on your desk today, guys. How do you think it's going to go? You must have done a bit of research, thought-wise.
What, you mean in book sales?
Yeah.
Well, with COVID, it's very, very hard to say.
Yeah.
This isn't normal times. Normally, Brian would be coming out to the ground and talking to people, and they'd be meeting him. We'd do all kinds of events. We just can't do it. So everything's having to be done online at the moment. This is very peculiar. So I think we're just glad it's out there. You know, this book is now there. A story, a previously untold story, and an incredible insight into, and a unique insight into that period is out there. We're just keeping our fingers crossed that people will read it, fall in love with it. We know that they will laugh themselves into the ground, but there's so much more than that as well. And it gives a flavour, a three-dimensional flavour and vision of what was going on in that period. And the amazing thing about the book as well are the number of famous players who crossed Kingy's path in his career. So there's some extraordinary stories there. So we're just hoping that people, word of mouth will go around and people say, yeah, we've really enjoyed this. We think you should get it.
Yeah, I think there's an appetite out there. But as you say, the challenge of our time is this pandemic, and that's going to put a bit of a dent in the beginning. But perhaps not in the end, because you'll have the opportunity to get down the den, Brian, and do that promotion, won't you?
Well, I hope so, because, you think that there's enough venues and places around in South London that we can have a question and answers, or buy the book and get a pint and this kind of thing. But until this pandemic levels itself off and we actually get a true answer from the government and a true answer from the so-called experts, because you pick any paper up, you've got 6-7 different opinions on what is actually you should do and what is actually happening. But over in Norway, in Scandinavia, we've been pretty good over here. Everything's been running as normal. Although the biggest problem, as it is in England, it's the students. I mean, for some reason they think that they're not going to get it. But when they mass in these groups and they have parties and whatever, they're still doing it. That once one's got it, there'll be about 30 get it, and then all of a sudden your area becomes a lockdown. When people start realising if this is what you got to do, then do it.
Yeah.
But apart from that, I think around football grounds and things now, things have got to start loosening up here. And it's okay for the Premier League clubs with the money that they get from TV and stuff, but the other league teams, it must be very, very difficult, especially with no money coming through the turnstiles. But when we get the all clear, and the best thing is with the book is that it ain't a Christmas book. You're not just bringing it out for Christmas. I want to be able to get down the den. I want to be able to get up where Horne is in the hospitality, and we can combine the two: sell books, meet me, see a game of football.
Yeah, let's have an executive lounge event.
It is a Christmas book. It's the perfect Christmas book, but it's not just a Christmas book.
No, that's what I mean.
It's for life.
Yeah,
it's
like a dog
as a present. Yeah, it's perfect.
Yeah.
That's fantastic stuff, guys. It's been a great pleasure to have you on. We'll say goodbye to Jim now. I know Brian's going to hang on for our final bit. So thanks, Jim, for coming on. It's been a treasure and a pleasure.
Thank you for having me on.
We'll have you on again sometime for a bit more in-depth history stories.
Indeed.
It'll be brilliant.
Jim, it's been good fun, mate, and let us know if the books arrive today, will you?
Yeah, they're still not here yet, mate.
Are they not? Jesus. Oh, well.
I know.
We're on the last leg of it now, so let's keep our fingers crossed. And regards to Jane and Vinny.
I was hoping we were going to have some history with the books arriving as we were actually live on air. Well, on air, but I'm afraid it didn't happen, so I'm sorry about that.
No problem.
Two things. Life's a little bit like that sometimes, and let's be hopeful. Or hopeful, anyhow. Okay. Yeah. We'll take a little break there. Thanks.
Bye now.
Cheers, Jim.
Cheers, Jim.
Hi, Bethany Warren here. Millwall Lionesses have partnered with international smartphone application Be My Eyes. Be My Eyes is an application that truly benefits the poor of sight and the blind, but is supported by those of us that can see.
You might wonder how blind people deal with everyday challenges. Well, normally the answer is simple. We're not that different from you. We play music. We go to school. We go to work. You get the picture. But sometimes the simplest things can be difficult, and we need a pair of eyes.
Connect to first available number.
That's where you come in.
Establishing video connection.
Through your smartphone, Be My Eyes connects the blind with sighted people through a live video connection. Simply choose if you need help or want to help by the click of a button.
That's a nice picture of you and your family, Caroline. Is it for a present? Yes, it's a photo from my parents.
You can help just by installing the Be My Eyes app.
Bricked image.
And we'll notify you when someone needs your help. And if you're in the middle of something, don't worry. Someone else will step in. So, would you care to be my eyes?
Be My Eyes is displayed on the Lionesses shorts this season. Download the app onto your smartphone now and help those that need your eyes straight away.
A zippy little tune, that one. Hi, I'm Eamonn, and I'm back with our guest Bryan King and the No One Likes Us Talking team of Jeff Burnige, Stan Godwin and Bethany Warren. Glad you got your internet back then, Bethany. Next up, we look to our trip to St Andrews this Saturday against one of Gary Rowett's former clubs, Birmingham City. But before we start discussing the game between ourselves, Henry Morgan has been speaking to the opposition, in particular to the vociferous Blues fan, Chris Pugh. Let's hear what he had to say, or at least both of them had to say.
Good evening, welcome to View from the Opposition. This evening we're speaking to Chris Pugh, Birmingham City fan. Chris, good evening.
Good evening, Henry. Thanks for having me.
No problem. You are part of the Fat Lads podcast. You want to just give us a quick 30 seconds what that's about?
Yeah. Fat Lads Going Goal, it's called. If you saw the podcast, you'd understand why. We're at Fat Lads Podcast on Twitter, about an hour to an hour and 15 every week. And it's first half based on Blues. We have a beer review at half time, and then the second half is a more generic football chat about things that are in the news at the moment.
Sounds phenomenal. We'll keep right on to the history of the fixture, which sees Birmingham City coming out with 23 victories to Millwall's 13, so heavily in your favour, actually, historically. Although we've won the last couple at St Andrews, but they were the first wins there since 1967. So, look, Birmingham City's record coming into our match-up on Saturday, 17th in the table, 3 wins, 4 losses, 6 draws. I think we've got the same number of draws. Coming off the back of a 1-1 draw at Luton midweek. How are the Blues generally playing, though? Is that a fair reflection, Chris, or is there more to it?
I think the fan base is a bit split, actually, but I think overall, Aitor Karanka came in the summer, and if you saw us after lockdown, to when the season finished last season, it was absolutely woeful. We were shipping goals left, right and centre, and we just could not stay in games at all. I think Hull came to St Andrews and scored 3 against us, and how bad Hull were last season.
Yeah,
exactly. So it was pretty evident straight away what Karanka had to do. He had to sort the defence out, and he's trying to do that. He's trying different systems, different players. He's played George Friend and Christian Pedersen at left back. He's played 3 or 4 different centre-back partnerships, whether it be a 3 at the back or 2 at the back. And he's trying to sort that defence out for sure. I think to the detriment of entertainment, which is annoying some supporters. But for me, in my opinion, it has to be done because of how bad we were at the end of last season. If we are going to progress at any point to look like a top half table team, then the defence needs sorting, and that's what he's working out. So the number of draws is probably testament to the fact that it's try not to lose rather than go out and win the game.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, interesting. So a bit of a rebuilding job at the moment. I remember seeing Karanka a couple of years ago when he was at Forest, and I think as well he was trying to do something. I'm not sure he was given enough time there actually, but there it is.
I think it was the same at Middlesbrough as well. When he came in, we looked at his first year at these clubs, and I think he went 7 games in his first season at Middlesbrough where they didn't score a goal. I think they drew 5-0. But it feels like he's sort of replicating that here, like where he's desperately trying to sort out the defence before anything else can happen.
In terms of moving smoothly on, really, in terms of who should Millwall be looking out for from Birmingham City, what players are the ones that are probably going to cause us some issues?
It's difficult to say. It's difficult to second guess what team, what system Karanka's going to go with at the moment, because he is keeping players and supporters on their toes in terms of team selections. But I think if you were, normally Bella and Ivan Sanchez. I'm not sure if both of them will play, if either of them will play, but they've definitely looked the most creative players in our side so far this season. They like to get the ball out wide, cut back in. Sanchez predominantly plays on the right, he's left-footed. Bella on the left, he's right-footed. So they like to cut back and whip crosses in, which have paid dividends for us this season. So I think those two, if either of them play, those two are the ones that you really need to stop getting crosses in.
Question I've got for you. With these games back-to-back like they are you finding an issue with squad rotation? Because I think something that's really detrimental to Millwall's progress this season has been the fact that we can't play our best 11 every week because we're having to rotate players because of the short space of recovery time. I don't know. That's just a question that I thought I'd fire across at you.
Yeah, for sure, especially considering a shortened pre-season. As you say, it does seem to be a lot more Saturday, Tuesday since the start of the season than there would normally. And I think that's definitely playing a part. You said it's playing a part for Millwall, struggling to get your best players out on the pitch every week. And I think combine that with the fact that Karanka probably doesn't know his best team yet still, so he's definitely trying a lot of things, a lot of different systems, different players in positions, and we haven't had a regular starting 11 by any stretch of the imagination either.
No, okay. So, talking of that, are there any Millwall players that you're aware of that might cause problems for Birmingham City, or you think your scouts might be particularly concerned about?
Well, I think there's always that player from certain teams that always seems to score against you. Matt Smith always seems to score against Blues. Okay. When he was at QPR or any of his other clubs, he seems to enjoy playing Blues. I think I've always liked the likes of Jed Wallace and and Sean Williams and people like that. They seem to enjoy being on the ball, and traditionally that if you're good on the ball, you'll do well against Blues. But I think obviously was it Wallace who scored against Reading that free kick?
Yeah, free kick.
Yeah, which shows his quality. I think he scored a really good goal at St Andrews last season as well, or the season before in a 1-0 win. So yeah, he's always someone that catches the eye for me.
Yeah. Again, I think Matt Smith only came on as a substitute in the week, so we might see him starting.
Is that the Spurs guy playing the loaner?
Troy Parrott is coming back, from an injury.
Okay,
so you may see him. He played 70 minutes or so yesterday. So we will see. Yeah, and we've got Zahor as well, who's out until, but he's not back until December. So we'll see about that. So finally, just want to go on to what prediction for the score in this game.
Well, you mentioned it in the preview. I think we've had 6 draws. I think you've had 7 now with your draw on Wednesday night. So
7.
I mean, 1-1. I don't think it'll be a too big a price to go 1-1, something like that. And to be fair, the way Blues are trying to sort out defensively, I don't think we'll be opening the floodgates and battering the door down. So I could see a tight, cagey affair. It wouldn't surprise me if it was 1-1 at the end. I think both teams would probably take that.
Yeah, I think Gary Rowett's probably going to start thinking he needs to pick up some wins from somewhere, but it would not surprise me at all if it was a draw. If you are focusing on defence like that, I'm not sure we've got the cutting edge at the moment to score, and when we do have that cutting edge, we seem to struggle to keep the team out of the other end. Brilliant. Well, look, thank you so much for coming on this evening. After Saturday, I'll wish you all the best for the rest of the season.
Likewise.
But until then, I'm afraid I hope you lose 6-0.
Yeah, I understand totally.
No, Robert. All right, Chris, thank you so much for coming on.
No problem. Thanks, mate.
No, you can't beat another 6-0 from our man Henry. And it's interesting to hear, and they seem to be going through similar sort of problems to ourselves. But Brian, what do you think about our chances against Birmingham on Saturday?
It's always been a difficult place to go to. I don't think they're as good a side as they were in the 70s, that's for sure.
God, not many.
But as both chaps were saying there, one's had 7 draws, one's had 6. Well, you'd have a few quid on it being a draw again, wouldn't you, really? But there we go. Somebody, I don't know, I just fancy Millwall might nick something up there, but I think we'll stick with a draw, eh?
Yeah, we'll try that one. How about you, Jeff?
I think a narrow win. We're better away from home. We've got better results away from home. The system we're playing seems to work better away from home. I don't think Birmingham are any great shape yet, and I suspect that we'll sneak a 1-0 win there.
Super, Jeff. Bethany?
Do you know what? Jeff has just said everything that I was about to say. I think we're going to sneak a 1-0 win. I'm going to sound like I'm copying him. I'd like to see Ben Thompson get some more game time, because in places he looks really, really good. But I do think just a bit more game time for him will just give him more confidence on the ball. And I'm actually going. I think Bodvarsson's going to score first, because I think he was completely off target. He was on target, but it got saved. If things come in threes, the third one's got to be a goal. So I'm remaining hopeful, but I think it'll be a 1-0 win.
Stan?
Well, I'm confident that we'll pick up 3 points myself. As somebody said earlier, our away record seems to be slightly better than our own record at the moment. And I don't see no reason why we can't go up there and win.
Well, let's see. What are you going to say? What's the score, Stan?
Well, probably about, it'd be either 3-2 or 2-1, by the odd goal.
The odd goal in 3 or the odd goal in 5. Well, that could be interesting, to say the least. Well, we'll leave that there, and we'll listen to the helpful tones of Patricia Maslin.
Hi, Patricia Maslin here. The Millwall Community Trust needs volunteer help. Whether you're an organisation with bodies able to assist or an individual, the Trust needs you during the current conditions to support the vulnerable and needy. If you can help make a difference or need help, please contact Sean Daly, the Trust's Chief Executive Officer, by phone on 07958 027060. Once again, that's 07958 027060. Or contact by email sdaly, I'll spell that, SDALY, at millwallcommunity, all one word, .org.uk. I'll repeat that, sdaly, SDALY, at millwallcommunity, all one word, .org.uk. If you can, or you know someone or any organisation who might be able to help, please let the Community Trust know. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Eamonn and I'm back with our guest Bryan King and the No One Likes Us Talking team of Jeff Burnige, Stan Godwin and Bethany Warren. Now, Jeff, I know you wanted to say something about Bryan before he left us this evening.
This book that Bryan's written, it's brilliant. It tells the story of a Millwall goalkeeping great, a Millwall great altogether, not just a goalkeeping great, who I first met when he signed in 1967, and I've had the pleasure of calling him a mate ever since. He took over from Laurie Leslie, who had a couple of very good seasons with Millwall after Alex Stepney left. But he soon made his way into the team, and at the end of that first season, Laurie actually left Millwall because he could see that there was no way back into the team. And 380 appearances later, Bryan moved on in August 1975. As that great early 70s team was broken up, Bryan was one of the last ones to go from it, I think. Delighted to see the book come out, and all I can say to everyone listening is please don't miss out on this. Get a copy of The Lion's King. It'll make you laugh. It'll take you back to a golden era in Millwall Football Club's history, but most of all, it'll tell the story of a really great goalkeeper, a great man, a person I've always been pleased to call a friend.
What do you think of that then, Bryan?
Follow that. Well, or as Jeff said, I've known him and his family since 1967, when his father became a member of the board and then later chairman. Great family, good Millwall history, especially Jeff. I mean, he's very similar to Jim Murray. They seem to be devoted to this football club, as we all become. And I look back at those 8.5 years I had at the club, and probably the happiest time of my life. And certainly I achieved the most playing-wise. And I sort of broke the barrier for players at Millwall when I got selected for England and the FA 11s and this kind of thing. It always seemed a battle, because although I was selected, I always felt that Barry should have been selected, Barry Kitchener, because I played with a fella at Coventry, Larry Lloyd, who went to Liverpool, and I think Barry was equally as good as him, if not better. And the same with the second centre-half I had at Coventry, Big Jim Holton, 6'2", eyes are blue, Scottish international. Again, Barry Kitchener was certainly as good as either of those two centre-halves. And I was upset that he never really got the chance to play in the First Division. We would have both loved to took Millwall into the First Division. I mean, that really would have been the cream on the cake for us. And just those supporters to have given that pleasure and to lose out cruelly like we did, it was hard. It was hard to accept, but it was good to have people like Jeff Burnige and his father and other members of the board and people around Millwall Football Club. I mean, the supporters, always great for me and always great for the team. So, you know, I can only say, Jeff, the cheque's in the post, mate.
Never mind the cheque in the post.
Well, I picked a good one. All I can say is how typical it is of Kingy that he comes on to talk about himself and his book, and he waxes on about Barry Kitchener. I know that Kingy and Kitch were roommates. They became very close friends. I know that whenever the Kitchener family come to the Den, almost always Brian's there at the same time. He makes a point of it. They were very close, and it's lovely to hear him talk in such terms about my greatest idol at Millwall, Barry Kitchener, because I agree with Kingy. He was a superb player. How good he was overlooked by the fact that he was basically a one-club man and didn't play in the first division. So thanks for that tribute to Kitch, Kingy.
Pleasure.
Bryan King, selfless, no doubt about it. Stay with us, Bryan. People continue to lose their lives to this dreadful virus or as a consequence of suffering with it as deaths and infections continue, whilst many more remain hospitalised too. Our thoughts go out to their families, friends and those that take care of them.
Next week, we'll welcome back Ted, Gary and Pat to be hosted by Eamonn. There are so many fans who want to support the club, and you can help by joining the Lions Loyalty Club. It costs £40 with benefits. For £25, you or a member of your family can also be a crowdie. For £103.95, you can be a virtual mascot with benefits, and why not sponsor a player's kit for £570 with benefits. All of the details and more can be found on the Millwall website. Lastly, don't forget I Follow returns with Carl Bates on Saturday versus Birmingham City. 100% of what you pay for the internet streaming service, home or away, goes back to Millwall Football Club. What a great way to improve their revenue in these challenging times. Watch out for updates on the Millwall website for the return to the stadium information for fans. Thank you and good night from me.
Scott Johnson, the founder of the Proper Blokes Club, is looking for guys to come along and join him to break the stigma of men's mental health with walk and talk groups. The lockdown means that Scott is unable to continue the walks until imposed restrictions change, but he does offer alternative options. Additionally, they are also doing a shoebox collection for the homeless of Southwark. Check out the Proper Blokes Club on Twitter and Facebook for further details. Good night from me.
One last thing from me. Player sponsorship for the Lionesses is available this season. Why not give them some added support, and you can find details on their website. Just put Millwall Lionesses into your browser and you will find them easily enough. People can share a sponsorship. That's quite a popular idea. We have led by example on this podcast and sponsored Captain Libby Stubbs. We're awaiting news from both the Lionesses and the Millwall Romans as to their return to play following lockdown. Hopefully we'll bring you news next week. For now, that's good night from me.
If you want to get a copy of Bryan King's book, The Lions King, remember what I said at the beginning of the show. Little Hell, a little place that they used to call, it's still called Merstham, but that was its nickname, Little Hell. Well, put Little Hell Books, all one word, .com into your browser. I'll say that again, littlehellbooks.com into your browser. Click on and you can order a copy of what will be an excellent read. If you want to win a copy of Bryan King's book, then answer this question. Why are Little Hell books called Little Hell? The answer is in this recording. So why are Little Hell books called Little Hell books? The answer is in this recording. And send your answer to nolutalkin@gmail.com. That's nolutalking@gmail.com. nolutalkin@gmail.com. You could be a lucky winner of one of the books. Lastly, let's not forget to keep it safe on the streets out there. Follow the lockdown procedures and the subsequent 3-tier guidance that's coming out next week. So don't forget social distancing when outside and a face mask where necessary. That's it from me. Thanks, Bryan. Thanks, Jeff. Thanks, Stan. And thanks, Bethany. Until the next time, good night.